right now I'm just making use of what I currently have. So the microphone on the phone that I'm using probably isn't going to capture my voice as well as we might like, but at least it's something. And in the future I'll get other better stuff. Maybe I'll have something that's Bluetooth, or we'll see. But what matters is that we get started. Even if all we have is just our phone and some cheap $10 stand. What matters is that we're starting the dialogue. And right now I'm sitting here and I'm talking into a phone. I'm not used to talking into a camera, but it's okay. I'd much prefer to have people here, but I understand that this medium allows me to be able to reach many more people than if you're physically sitting in front of me. So, in any case, I appreciate that you're viewing. And this message and series of messages is meant for both the men and the women, the masculine and the feminine. And with each, I was gonna just jump into it. So I think that let's start from the very beginning, because it's a very good place to start. Fear. Fear is meant to protect us. Our ego has developed a series of fears that is meant to protect us. It's trying to do what we told it to do, but when we told it to do it, we were very young. Sometimes we programmed our mind when we were 5 years old, something happened. 7 years old, 10 years old, whatever it is. We have situations in our life that come up that are traumatic for us. And the thing about trauma, I think, is that it's different for every person. And one person can sit through one circumstance and come out of it completely unscathed. And then another person is suffering for their entire life. So not every two individuals are the same in terms of the way that we suffer, the way that we perceive reality. And these traumas or wounds create this artificial character, this avatar, if you will, of this flesh and bones, and also the spirit within. And what I mean by that is, rather, let me differentiate between body and spirit briefly. So the body is the physical, right? It's this. And sometimes this can break, you can sprain your arm, you can have problems with the body. But deep within is the spirit. It's that part of us that can never be touched, never be seen, never be destroyed. That part of us is also very malleable. We can change it at will, whenever we want. And by doing so, we are shifting ourselves from one dimension, or one existence, one universe. We're shifting to another universe when we make a decision. Sometimes our decisions are very small, and we're still shifting our world and our perception, and the perception of all the people around us. When we start to improve our lives, for example, when we start to improve our lives, it impacts us and all the people around us. When we start to face our fears with courage, determination, and perseverance, then we start to shift our entire existence. And the meat is pretty much the same. Maybe it gets a little bit bigger, a little smaller, a little stronger, a little whatever. But that doesn't change that much. What changes is what's within. What's within is what changes. I feel like I'm digressing a bit, so I'm going to go back to the original thing that I want to talk about, which is about facing fear with courage. If there's something that I feel afraid of, or that you feel afraid of, or that we as a collective feel afraid of, that's an indication that we should probably take a look at it. And I encourage you to face those fears. And the way that we can tell that we're afraid of something, which is of utmost importance, because if we don't know if we're afraid or not, if we say, oh, we're angry, oh, we're jealous, oh, we're all these negative emotions. No. All those negative emotions, you can collect them all and encapsulate them into just one thing. Fear. So, someone who feels angry, for example, let's say they're trying to communicate with someone and that person is not listening. The person's perspective, the one who's speaking, is saying they don't care. I want them to care. I'm afraid that they don't care, that they don't love me, for example. They don't love me. And instead of feeling the fear, feeling the sadness, feeling the anger, we project it out and we say, it's your fault. We get angry. But at the end, it's fear. We're afraid that the other person doesn't love us, doesn't care about us. So we test them. We say to them, let's see how much you can tolerate of my nonsense before you finally leave me. But that's a self-defeating way of thinking and being, because eventually the people who do love us will leave us because we're abusing them. All the anger, all the negativity that we're putting out there. It's time to look within. And face your fears. Small things, little things. But the key thing is to identify when we feel afraid. And I think that the easiest way to do that, in my opinion, and in my experience, is to, when we think that there's only one option, one outcome in a situation, when we're convinced there's only one outcome, that's fear talking. Because reality is that we always have at least two choices. And then, if we look harder, we have at least three choices. And then if we look harder, we have a fourth choice. So I'll give you an example of that. And let me see if I can find something from my life which is going to be useful in this situation. I used to be afraid to speak up when there was something that I believed was important, and there was a group of people who I believed would judge me negatively, and maybe they would reject me and I would have to go somewhere else or not be a part of the group, which is still something that I contend with. I wrestle with it. It's hard. But I think that's a common situation, and it's something that still comes up for me occasionally. It's not as hard anymore, but it does. And in that situation, the fear, the ego, which is, again, to protect us, it's not to protect our flesh necessarily, it's to protect our creation of who we think we are. The false self, the ego is the false self. The true self has no fear. The true self has no fear. The true self has no fear. I want to reiterate that 3 times. It's important. There's nothing to be afraid of, ever. Unless we choose to confine ourselves within the limitations of the ego, the false self. So fear is what stops us from doing things because we believe that there's only one option. And we believe, if I do this, we don't even think about the second option. It's like it's closed. We're completely closed off. We say to ourselves, I say to myself, if I do this, I don't even know what's gonna happen. So the thing about fear is that it tricks us. I don't even know I'm gonna die. Or, like if I speak out, I'm gonna die. I'm just gonna die on the spot. We don't even allow ourselves to think about other possibilities. Maybe if we speak out, and all those people who have a different opinion than us, they will point their fingers at us and laugh. That's a possibility. Another possibility, we have to go through the possibilities. Okay, it's possible. Is it probable? I don't know, maybe, depending on the circumstances. Another possibility might be that we say something. We have the courage to say something that's outside of the group. And at the time, everyone mocks us. At the time, everyone mocks us. But then, the next day, 2 days later, someone comes up to us and they go, I was thinking the same thing. I'm so glad you said something. I'm so glad you had the courage to say something. Because I couldn't. And if you're able to do that even once, you'll see. It'll change your life. And it will change the lives of everyone around you. When they see that you found your courage, it will encourage them as well to face their fears. And eventually, if you go down this path enough, you've liberated yourself. You've liberated your true self. I would say that